All right. A big hangout, everybody. Welcome back to my stream. We're ready to go. So today is a little bit of a different approach. I'm going to be talking about SolidX. All right, we're going to dive into why SolidX is, without question, the king of Hart's Law on Pulsechain. And I'll show you exactly why no other token or coin comes close at the moment. In the next 15 minutes, you're going to see exactly what I mean, and how we may have already won the race before it started. This is pretty cool. So some of you may wonder, what the heck is Hart's Law? And so I'll just cover it real quick. But the idea behind this is this guy, Richard Hart, had come up with naming this relationship of automated, market making LPs and how they work together, right? So in simple terms, right, when tokens are bonded deeply, as we see in PTGC, UFO, Hex, Pulsechain, Inc., they're positioned to pump hardest when the market turns bullish. All right, and so that's the claim to fame. What happens when RH cores pump, and which ones will rise farther and which will ride those waves. And there are big waves coming for Pulsechain for sure, right? And so the tokens that are most closely linked to the RH cores will rise with it. Now, this is something Richard Hart has actually posted about as well. In his example from a few months ago, he was comparing why you should have LP with Pulse versus DAI. Right, and so that's the idea, right? Because the DAI is going to hold it back and it's going to try to keep the price low because you suffer that impermanent loss, but you get the full-on effect, of the pumpage when you're tied to the cores, particularly with Pulse, right? So no one comes close. The king sits on the throne for a reason, right? So the king being SolidX. All right, so let's take a look at some of this data that I pulled out here. Right, so we talked a little bit about Hart's Law already. Let's head over here and look at the data. So this is pretty intriguing. I mean, I know that the information's out there. A lot of you have seen it. Maybe some people haven't seen it. But just comparing some of the largest contenders in the market, right? In the market, SolidX, right, has $12.6 million with core. $12.6 million. And when I say core, I'm talking about Hex, Pulsechain, Inc., Pulse. $12.6 million. The closest contender, I believe, that's out there is UFO at $4.9 million. PTGC at $2.7 million. Helgo at $2.6 million. All very formidable. Who wouldn't want to own those LP pools? Of course you would. Of course you would. But let's talk about SolidX itself. We have the largest, deepest liquidity pool bonded directly to RH core assets. And because of that, our LPs can outpace all of the other coins. Now, maybe we'll see what will happen. Things happen in crypto, things change. But I think we're going to see it outpace certainly most meme projects by more than a mile, right? This means that when Pulsechain pumps, SolidX is going to surge even more by design. That's how it's designed. That's why SolidX put up the liquidity the way it did, is to make that happen. While the others chase those pumps, SolidX is going to dominate. And so I really believe that we're going to find out that Pulsechain's crown really is going to belong to SolidX in the end. But hey, it's a friendly competition, but it is a competition, right? Tokens compete for attention. They compete for volume, value, etc. And I should say is while I do hold SolidX, I'm not part of their development team. I'm not a founder, etc. And SolidX, you can go look at the contract online. It's an already capped supply that's out there and currently burning with a couple of different protocols that are out there. That's pretty good in a way. And I was kind of referencing, and let's do that now. We'll look at his his post. SolidX had some posts up today talking about just how well things are going. And we'll take a look at that here in a second. But if we take a look at the chart, now things have come backed off a little bit, but we saw this is pretty wild, right? We saw SolidX go up 30% today with Pulse. Now, what's wild about that is that it wasn't native buying. It wasn't organic buying for SolidX that pushed it up. It was the bonded liquidity. Now, of course, Pulse has come back down a little bit. I think it is down on the day, or up on the day 5% instead of up 30%. But lo and behold, if you go look at the SolidX chart, you'll see that it's right about the same level, right? And so we got that pump with virtually no one buying directly. How is it possible, right? That's the question, right? The liquidity structure, right? Price moves dramatically, even on light volume, because of that Hart's law effect. And so that's what we're seeing. So, you know, the tagline I think he uses, hey, we're winning before the race even starts. And that's real royalty. That's royalty right there. All right, let's take a look at his posts. I think I have that up here next. Yeah. See, I'll read it off in case you haven't seen it. I did include a link in the chat for you to go find the X account that's out there. So you can go do that. And so it's in the show description. And he was saying, hey, listen, well, it looks like Ink and Pulsechain is moving up today. It did. I didn't trace the actual buy. I just saw the Pulse had gone up first, I thought. But he was pointing out, hey, did the other tokens go up as much? And, you know, is PDI moving? Nope. I like the nope meme because nope is a token. And of course, we can say nope. It's kind of a fun thing to say. Is PTGC moving? Is Teddy Bear moving? Is any other token outperforming SolidX today? And the answer was no. At least that's how he stated it here. And as we look at this, you know, one of the things that struck me is this couple paragraphs down. He says, just wait until I launch 4 products in a row, one after another over the next few weeks. Then you will start to see the direct buy pressure on SolidX as well. So I'm aware of some of this, but I'm not really in the loop to know exactly what's being launched. So I guess we'll classify these as rumors right at the moment. But one thing he had thrown out there, and this is SolidX, the founder, is this post a few weeks back where he was talking about something called the X game, which I am aware of, but I don't know all the details. And I haven't done any of the work to look at the design or any of the testing, anything like that. And this is going to be the crash game that I believe is coming on blockchain, and which will be available across many blockchains. And then part of that, because it's cross-chain, is going to also have deflationary metrics involved with it. And I don't know which tokens it's going to buy and burn. I know SolidX is one of the ones that it's planned. And he's claiming, hey, look, this is going to be unlike anything you've seen in crypto gaming. And so the next era of crypto gaming is going to be solid. And of course, that's a play on words for SolidX. So yeah, you know, some of you guys may actually have more information than I have on all this, but pretty cool to see how that liquidity really pushed that up. And you can go look at the other tokens, even in the Solid Index, and you can see them all following the same tracing pattern, because a bulk of LP, or a big part of it anyway, is over to is linked over to SolidX as well. And so because of that, you have the reflexivity that goes all the way through all of the tokens. And of course, beyond the Solid Index, there's many tokens that are also paired up with SolidX. You can go take a look at that yourself, but there's many pairs. And so, you know, hey, the claim is this, that the SolidX is not just ahead, it's dominating. And as far as competition, there isn't any, right? It's going to be domination. Now, some guys can change that, but it would take, as we were seeing here on these slides, right, in terms of just creating a different outcome. I mean, the SolidX pools with the cores, actually, it's 4.9 UFO. So if I add these up, 4.9, 2.7, 2.6, that's what, 5.3, 9.3, 10.2. So even with all three of the other protocols together, they still don't. They're still not a match for the SolidX liquidity that's out there. So wow. So I'm kind of thinking, we kind of like this whole royalty kind of theme with SolidX, right? But what we're really seeing here is that it's going to be the crown jewel of Pulsechain. That's what we think, right? It's just getting started over the next couple of weeks. If these new products get launched one after another, and they start putting direct buy pressure on SolidX, I think I know which side of the protocol I want to be on. I want to be on the holding side, of course, right? Now, how can people get involved? Okay, do your own research. You always need to do that. You need to do your own research. You need to take a look at the different contracts if you choose to, and make sure you understand what you're getting involved in. But things that I have seen work very well for people, of course, buy and hold, standard Richard Hart approach, right? Buy and hold, and of course that SolidX is a big supporter of Hex and Pulsechain. So buy and hold, time in the market instead of time in the market. If you have the capability and you want to learn more about it, you can look at earning liquidity. Watch for these rumored product launches, right? Maybe go into the Telegram. The Telegram is also in the show description here for you to take a look at. Join the community and don't miss out on what probably will be 400 days of an alt season. That's going into the next year. If we see this extension of the cycle. And so those are the things you can do. Now, if you guys have any questions, throw them in chat now, because this will be a short video overall, but pretty good. Pretty good so far. We switch over for a moment. I'll switch over to take a look at the actual live charts. Let's do that for a moment before we wrap up. But again, that liquidity is pretty amazing. We can see it right on the chart when we look at it. Yeah, I even have this set up in advance if I can find it. Here's our X game tweet. I'm going to take a look at SolidX. Look at that candle. Whoa, that wick up. Oh my God, this is on SolidX. I'm just measuring bottom to top. I don't know when it started. I have to go to a lower time frame, but 32% up. Still 5% on the day. Retraced 15% over the last 6 hours. As far as that goes, we take a look at the hourly chart. Boom. Look at that. Look at those candles. Looks like a series of buys came in. 1, 2, 3. A little bit of fight here, and then of course after the ammo was expended, it started coming down a little bit. Bloop, 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 bloop. We look at the Pulsechain. Again, this kind of just demonstrates the power of this, right? Basically the same chart, right? I'm looking at Pulse. Now let's go over SolidX for comparison. I should stop hovering. Boom. Boom. I could put them side by side, but you get the idea. Those things are linked up and they're right on top of each other. We look at our tracked volume for the day. Last time I checked with the SolidX, this is another thing I think is a big deal. You see $1 million on 12, which is pretty formidable in our current state. So that's a ratio of volume to liquidity is pretty high. We look at some of the other tokens. No digs at the other tokens out there, and as far as being negative, just showing why there's a difference between them. Here's 50,000 on UFO versus 5 million in liquidity, a much lower percentage. PTGC, 64,000 on 2.7 million, doesn't come close. We take a look at Helgo, beautiful Helgo. Helgo, I love you. 13,000 on 2.6. So these are not structured the same way. They all might have their own benefits, their own things you could do with them. But SolidX by far is the king. So with that, let's see if we got any questions in the chat. We'll just take a look at who's out here before we wrap. And and then hit it. I see the crypto punk out here, Vic Foundation. I know you, Vic. Green Eats, Beach Whale, always good to see you. Condor, yes, good to see you. And Fast Abdul is here for the tech. I'll be on later today with Fast Abdul, and tomorrow with PTGC founders and the Prairie Banana, talking a little about those. And yeah, diehard Hexican, I think you're right. It is going to be a wild ride. It's gonna be a wild ride. I still love Hex. But I can't ignore this SolidX. That's for sure. I truly think we're going to end up seeing that SolidX does a huge performance during this next bull run as we go up. And don't miss out and get your seat at the table, the king's table, as I say. And with that, stay crispy.